It's your boy Luke here for some round 2 prize picks targets for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Here in this video, we're going to cover my top 4 props for the second round of this event and some of the plays, some of the strategy that are going to go into my cards for this round. In general, yesterday's picks were really kind of a crapshoot. We ended up hitting on 2 of our 5 main picks. One of them was a push, so really closer to like 2.5 out of 5, I suppose. But the Hovland over greens regulation, also that greens regulation number 4 Abraham Answer, really came through and bit us. I did not expect that from both of those players. Some of the best iron players we have on the PGA Tour, and while conditions were tough in general, there were still a few guys that were able to hit the green. So it wasn't impossible. I'm not just going to completely attribute that to the conditions. Of course, some of our guys going to have bad days from time to time. On the fairways front, we had a lot more success. Of course, I told you guys the fairways here always tend to be extremely bouncy. The greens, not always so much so. This year, that was kind of the difference that made the greens so hard to hit. But the fairways, always hard to hit. We saw that once again, the fairway rate just at 50.9% for the day, making it one of the hardest golf courses on tour to hit the fairways. And it's not like we're dealing with small fairways. I mean, there's plenty of room out there. This is more of a resort style golf course than it is a TPC network type of golf course. Even though it has the name TPC Scottsdale, it is a public golf course. So unlike something like a Sawgrass, a lot of the other TPC network places like a TPC Las Vegas, it's not a private golf course. So it's meant to be a little bit more user-friendly than some of these other golf courses, but it's still hard to hit these fairways. So we are potentially going to be taking a look at some of the unders on fairways this afternoon, but a majority of our picks going to be focused on birdie or better. And now while strokes seem to be a little bit more advantageous, of course, to get to a 67, which would clear almost everyone on the board's score metric, the highest number I believe is Jon Rahm at 67.5. The issue is that also brings bogeys into play. And this is a golf course that has plenty of trouble out there, whether it's cactuses, rocks, you name it. You make one false move off the tee, you could very well be making a double or a triple bogey. So we're going to be focusing on the birdies or better, because even if a player goes out there and runs into one of those landmines, he could still very well get to the 5 or 6 birdies that he'll need. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. All right, guys, on the screen, you can see the board for today. And as I mentioned during the introduction, we are going to be taking a look at birdies or better. You get a little bit more safety from some of those large numbers. And frankly, the board's pretty soft for today. So we'll go ahead and start at the top. The man of the hour, Jon Rahm, he's on the thumbnail. We know that he's the best player in the world. He's also a local resident of Scottsdale. He lives extremely close by to this golf course. This is a course that he plays a dozen times per year during the off season, if not more, if he's actually staying in Scottsdale for any type of an extended period of time. And overall, anytime we get the best player in the world at a 5 birdies or better number, I'm going to be interested in taking the over. The real kicker has to be whether he's in form. And Jon Rahm in round 1 did everything but make putts. In terms of greens and regulation, he was perfect through his first 9 holes. By the end of the day, ended up hitting 16 greens in regulation. If we take a look at his fairway numbers, they were also some of the best in the field. Shots gained off the tee, which is the number we use to encapsulate the player's distance and accuracy off the tee, he ranks top 25 in the field. Also top 25 in the field in shots gained approach. Those are the 2 key metrics I'm really looking at for this week. So on top of him already being the best player in the world, he's also coming in with the exact type of form that we're looking for. So if he can cash in on the greens a little bit more often, perhaps like what we're used to seeing from the world's #1 player, should easily get to at least the 5 birdie mark, if not the 6-7 range where he ends up hitting the over. Next up, we have Viktor Hovland. We're going right back to him yesterday, or I guess today at this point, if you guys are watching this tonight. Ended up failing us, but Viktor Hovland, one of the best players in the world. In fact, he's won 3 of his last 5 starts. 2 of them were on the European Tour. Of course, he won at the Hero World Challenge, also at Mayakoba. So you're not going to find a hotter player on tour. And for the key metrics we're looking at, he's a top 5 player on tour with shots gained off the tee. He's top 10 in shots gained approach. And if we're just looking at the ball striking number, which is a combination of those 2 categories, he ranks top 3 in the world. That is the picture-perfect blueprint for success at TPC Scottsdale. So even though he had the rough day, now we get a better number. He was at 5 birdies or better to start this event, and that 4.5, that 0.5 hook difference makes a huge difference in terms of the EV. Of course, 5 rather than pushing before, that is actually going to be giving us the win here. And somebody who made a ton of putts in round 1 but couldn't really put himself in scoring position. If he can get back to his roots, what he's used to doing, of course hitting a ton of greens in regulation, he's going to put up quite a few birdies. Next up, we have Brooks, where we're going to be taking the under. So we took the same number on round 1. It was also 5 birdies or better. And obviously, he's in second or third place at this point. Ended up shooting 5 under par, making 6 birdies for the day. He was pushing 5 for most of the day until the last hole, where he, of course, sunk a 20-footer to sink our ship there a little bit. Fortunately, though, that was his ceiling performance. For him to be in third place after the first round is a huge surprise. This is somebody who, like we said for our round 1 picks, was coming in over his last 24 measured rounds, losing shots gained in all 4 major statistical categories. That's driving the ball off the tee, your approach play with your irons, around the green with net chipping, and of course your putting on the greens. He's losing in all 4 categories. So to expect him to go out there and have 2 ceiling performances one day after another is really just too much. When I first went to record this video, Brooks was at 4.5 birdies or better, and I was still considering taking that number. I was on someone else though, but when I saw right as I went to record that he went up to 5 birdies or better, that made him one of my favorite plays on the slate. It took him from right around a 57% success rate to right around 65%, which in terms of birdie or better is pretty much as good as you're going to get. So I really like going to the under here. Again, anytime you put up a really solid score on the PGA Tour, it's difficult to back that up, let alone when you put up a ceiling type of performance. Then it's even harder to try and back that up. So we're going to be taking the same prop once again, and I don't see it biting us this time around. Let's go to the bottom of the board for our last 2 picks. And as you can see here, because we're going to be taking 2 unders, the last under will be Brian Harmon, which we'll touch on last. We do get that 12.5x multiplier, which is of course important. If you're able to structure your card the right way with the new rules payout structure in place, you can take advantage of some really nice situations. And this is of course one of them. But the second to last play going to be Sam Burns at 4.5 birdies or better. Also had a really solid day. Ended up making, I believe, 4 birdies on the day. Was really solid with the ball striking. The putter, he made a 40-foot putt, but outside that, really didn't get all too hot. But he's really a top 15 player in the world. The world rankings say so at this point. This is somebody who broke through for a win for the first time last year and really hasn't looked back. After winning that Valspar Championship, not only has he added another win to the ledger, that being the Sanderson Farms this fall, but multiple top 5s. He's one of the most volatile players on the PGA Tour. In fact, for 2021, for the entire calendar year, was number 2 on the PGA Tour in birdie percentage, only behind Bryson DeChambeau. Here in 2022, the season that started in the fall, he's top 5 on the PGA Tour. Shots gained off the tee, he's top 10 in the world. Shots gained on approach, also top 10 in the world. So for all 3 key stats we're looking for, off the tee and approach, but of course also birdie or better percentage, because that's exactly what we're looking for with these props here. He's one of the best players in the world. So a lot of things looking good for Sam Burns. In round 1, it's not like he completely took the top off the place, but at least came in with some decent form, right? So it's not like it's going to be hard to back up something of 3-4 under par. But for him to get to that 5-6 birdies or better, I really like his chances. I have him at right around a 65% success rate. So pretty similar to something we had up here with Brooks, but just for the other side. We're taking the over here with Sam Burns. Something to note here as well is that he tends to be a little bit of a risky player, extremely aggressive, going to take some lines that other players just won't be willing to take, whether it's risk or just ability-wise. He also has a lot more distance to reach some of these holes. He brings a ton of risk and a ton of double and triple bogeys into play, which for score certainly makes it a little bit risky. I believe his score rating is at 68.5 or something like that. Maybe it's 68. I'd have to go and double check, but I'm not comfortable with either number there. I'd rather be taking this birdies or better number, which gives him a little bit of cushion in case something like that goes ahead and happens. And now lastly, we have Brian Harmon, 4.5 birdies or better, which we're taking the under. Somebody who in round 1 ended up making 6 birdies. So much like a Brooks Koepka had his ceiling type of round, which is of course really hard to back up. But even more so for somebody like a Brian Harmon, who historically isn't the best course fit here at TPC Scottsdale. He's a good iron player, but off the tee leaves a lot to look for. He's not the best player in terms of distance. Also with accuracy, can be shaky from time to time, as he has been for about the last month on tour. Brian Harmon also somebody who believe his number yesterday was 3.5 birdies or better. Now it's at 4.5, so he's got up a whole point in terms of birdie or better, not half a point. A lot of the other fluctuations on this board were half a birdie at most, right? Scottie Scheffler went up half a point. Jordan Spieth went up half a point. Guys like Victor Hovland went down half a point. A lot of the guys stayed the same. All right, guys, on the screen, something else I wanted to note before we get out of here are a few of the other props I have my eyes on. These aren't going to be core picks for me, but I do like taking potentially some of the unders on green and regulation and for fairways. So we'll start off with greens and regulation. I think for some of the stud guys up top, they're appropriate, right? There's not really anyone I'd be taking the under or the over on. The over risky because it's such difficult conditions, but of course the under risky because these are the best players in the world. Jon Rahm was still able to hit greens today. Same thing with a Justin Thomas or even a Jordan Spieth. So that's why you see them priced up there. While you could expect them to see at least a little bit of negative regression, isn't anything that I'd want to be sticking my flag in. But go down a little bit further towards the bottom of the board, there's a few guys that become at least slightly interesting. Billy Horschel's a great iron player. Go down a little bit further, Gary Woodland makes sense. He's also really good off the tee, so puts himself in solid situations. But those guys would be guys I'd be considering for the over. In terms of an under, I could scatter shot, right? Seamus Power under would make sense. He didn't look very good in round one. Kevin Kisner under makes sense. He's a little bit overpriced, at least considering the conditions that we have. Matthew Fitzpatrick even. Tony Finau, he looked really bad in round one. These were all guys that I would consider on taking the under, but they aren't quite as confident picks as what I have here for the birdies or better. So that's why they didn't end up making the full card. And if we go over here to the fairways, perhaps a little bit more edge here than what we have with the greens and regulation. These are always hard to hit here at TPC Scottsdale, as we've already outlined. So taking some of the unders on a Ches Reavie, who hit a ton of fairways in round one, or even a Keegan Bradley, who's one of the better drivers on tour, but for him to hit 10 out of 14 fairways, that's a tough task at a golf course where you're averaging just 50.9% fairways in regulation. Going down a little bit further, you could take a look at Seamus Power for the same reason I outlined before. He did not look good at all in round one. You could take the under on guys like Xander Schauffele, not necessarily the most accurate driver. Ricky Fowler could not hit a fairway for his life today. Scottie Scheffler, more of a bomber than he is accurate, so on and so forth. I do like a lot of the unders on the board for fairways. Tony Finau under. You could take the Justin Thomas under on fairways. He completely sprayed it today off the tee. A lot of those would make sense. But much like I said before, these birdies or better seem to be the market that's the most ripe, at least as of right now. Maybe tomorrow morning if they move some of these lines, these will be the pivots to go to. I know I always get that question. Some of these lines move. A lot of you guys go out there, you play the same lines as I am, which makes a lot of sense. That's why I'm putting these picks out there. But that, of course, moves the market. And the reason why they move picks around, they move these lines, is because people are hammering them. So if that ends up happening, that's the purpose of this little addition at the end. Those are the props that I'd be looking at. That's all I've got for the round 2 prize picks. Before we get on out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your single favorite prop on the board is. It doesn't have to be for birdies or better. It could be for fairways, greens, strokes, you name it. But whatever your single favorite prop on the board is, go ahead and comment that down below. And as always, I appreciate all of your support, all of you guys stopping by and enjoying the content. If you guys haven't already liked the video or subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. We're going to be posting even more prize picks content throughout the weekend, whether it's for Saturday or Sunday, or of course, all of the golf contents going forward. If you haven't already seen my golf DFS content or my weekly course breakdowns for the PGA Tour, it's also excellent golf content I put out there to get you guys prepared for every single event. So you're not going to want to miss any of that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't. Of course, good luck with all of your prop hunting for today, and let's get this cash.